can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around, we're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Glen tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it. They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Trish on the bottom.
Richard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
Novak into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
Greetings everybody, you are tuned to Racer Nexus and this is our coverage of the HPR GT World Challenge Season 9 with a fantastic battle in the offing. And guess what folks, you are in for an absolute treat. Jake Sanson here in lead broadcast position. Beside me, Rob Campbell, also producing with cameras from Track Cams 22. It is going to be a very intense battle on the Watkins Glen International Circuit. And in this magnificent Season 9 battle, there's already been plenty of twists and turns to make a bowl of spaghetti. And now we're going to have an exciting challenge in front of us as the drivers descend on this legendary American road course. We're going to have a very special day of racing as ever, and of course with all of the fantastic support that our technical partners and sponsors can provide. As always, HYMO giving us plenty of professional sim racing setups used by the High Point Racing drivers, helping to elevate the standard of racing across all the classes. And as part of their patronage, each race winner gets 1 month of subscription to HYMO. And at the end of the year, an end of season random draw gives the champion of that draw a 1-year subscription. We're also supported by Monster Designs, custom race liveries and professional branding and livery designs for drivers and teams. There are also plenty of livery giveaways done through the season. And of course, our friends at Admin Box with their broadcast and operations support and their help in race control as an organizational tool, supporting all of the structure and league operations through the course of the season. It's going to be another splendiferous battle here on the circuit. As mentioned at the top of the bill, I'm Jake Sanson, beside me Rob Campbell. Another brilliant battle ahead of us in what has already promised in Season 9, Rob, to be a very unpredictable battle.
Yeah, Watkins Glen, what more of a American staple than this track here, Jake? And we saw it last week. Actually, it might have been 2 weeks ago now. It kind of evades me. The IMSA side of the HPR series came here for multi-class racing, and it was a heck of a show with Lucia Tosi. Luckily, she ran an extra lap than the rest of the field in the GTD Pro class, but she ran out of fuel coming around the final corner. But thankfully, as I said, that extra lap up, she coasted across. Stephen Kurnick, who was in the booth that night, was cheering her on, and we kind of watched it with about 30 seconds to go, waiting for her to coast across the line. So we'll see if we have any kind of field dramatics here at Watkins this week.
Certainly an exciting racetrack. It's got so many twists and turns, this place. Changes of elevation, offset camber. It's not an easy one to get right. On paper, this is quite an easy and straightforward challenge, but once you get into the nitty-gritty of this race circuit, it definitely does shock the underprepared, and it's one of those circuits that genuinely keeps drivers on their toes. At the present moment in time, we've got about 3 minutes left of qualifying, and you can see for yourself that it is hard for drivers to keep it on the straight and narrow. That's Gavin Camber going for a pirouette in his Ferrari. Not the easiest of racetracks. We've currently got 21 drivers out there trying to set a time. 8 of those drivers in GTD Pro, the other 13 across GTD. Battles all the way. Let's look at the points coming into this one. Jace Larson currently has an 8-point swing in favor of Lucia Tosi, whose consistency has kept her up at the sharp end. 1 point ahead of Christian Ruiz in third. Then Alex Velasco is also in the hunt. With outsiders, Henry Fenson and Dan Pino looking for the shot of it. In GTD, Carlos Ruiz Padilla has 10 points on Nicholas Matthews, with Chris Nauman on 127. Ken Clodin in his Ecto 1 McLaren with an outside shot of doing something spectacular. Tom King and Will Atom in the mix as well. Definitely going to be an interesting one here at Watkins Glen. Unpredictable as ever. You never quite know what's coming with this place, and in this championship in particular, it's definitely going to be a tricky one. And of course, all of the drivers know that this place can bite. I love Watkins Glen, both in the real world and in sim racing. Rob, this is a place that genuinely delivers great action, and it's one of those circuits as well that's actually quite difficult to get into a rhythm on.
Yeah, it is not a whole lot of great overtaking opportunities here, Jake. It's kind of, a lot of full throttle, all-out racing. You really only have, say, maybe into turn 1 if you're really confident into the bus stop, but you're kind of taking your risks versus reward with that one, especially with the new curbing they've added. The kind of real shark tooth curbing in there, as we see Lucia Tosi, as I mentioned, a rough race last time here at Watkins for her, so she's hoping for a strong contention, a strong finish, as she's sitting in second in the points, just ahead of third place by 1 point, so she'd like to close that gap onto first.
Yeah, a circuit that's been around for exactly 70 years in the real world. 1956 was when it first opened as a road course venue. Prior to that, of course, it was on the public roads surrounding the current venue. Ryan Anderson looking at third position at the moment, currently only 24 tenths of, 0.24, 24 hundredths of a second back to the leader. Dan Pino is the man in question who is leading the times at the moment in front of Itamar Elemele, who is in second place. Great to see him make more of an impact in his second appearance in the championship. Lucia Tosi, second in the championship, currently running in fourth place, ahead of Christian Ruiz, Henry Fenson, and the championship leader, Jace Larson. This is a bit of a trend now, Rob. Jace Larson, championship leader, but we don't tend to see him at the front of the field until we get to the race itself. He seems to be a bit of a conservative man in qualifying, but he lets all of the chaos happen around him and then picks up the spoils when it counts.
Yeah, something can be said about the calm, cool, and steady practice that Jace puts in week out, as we see the checker flag waving. So this could be his final lap here. We'll see if he's able to improve. He's got Nick Matthews in behind him. Jace Larson currently in 7th. Looks like he is going to stay there, Jake. So he's going to have to put that work in here again to try to make his way up through the field.
It's the same business all the way through, and in GTD, it's also an interesting one as Donald Powell has very appropriately put the Corvette into the top spot in GTD. That's a very fitting moment for the Corvette brand. The only Corvette in the race, and it's gone pole at Watkins Glen. Very suitable indeed. Chris Nauman and Carlos Padilla very close indeed in terms of times. Only 700ths of a second separating them. And for Nicholas Matthews, well, it's even tougher. He's got Jace Larson syndrome because he's in 8th position of the GTD drivers for this one. So he finds himself having to play catch up. But then a lot of the drivers who have got that consistency and put decent points on the board are very good at not getting stressed out in qualifying and just letting the race come back to them. So that's going to be a trend again here at Watkins Glen for sure, as the checkered flag flies over Watkins Glen International in upstate New York, and we get ourselves ready for an exciting battle in the race itself. And it is genuinely going to be unpredictable as ever, Rob. We genuinely don't know from one race to the next what's going to happen. And here at Watkins Glen, it's not quite like Catalonia. Those walls are a lot closer, and those mistakes are very punishable indeed.
Yeah, we saw a number of drivers go off track last week and have the mercy of that large kitty litter runoff that you see in a FIA Grade 1 track. As you mentioned, the tight confines. Watkins, as you mentioned, started as a street circuit running through the town of Watkins Glen. But you know, they kind of brought that essence to the track here itself, Jake, when they built it. It's kind of a, you know, it's almost street circuit-esque with the walls being so close around the track.
Yeah, it does have that sort of feel, and it's always been a fascinating place for racing. 38,900 seating capacity here in the real world, so it is a proper blockbuster venue in New York. And it's wonderful for sim racing as well. Genuinely puts people on the back foot ahead of races. We've got ourselves ready then for an exciting battle. Of course, we've got ourselves a good battle ahead of us, and we will obviously talk our way through the starting grid now, because we now know the identity of the front row of the starting grid. It's going to be the Chilean Dan Pino, who has got things together in pole position. In the GTD category, it's Donald Powell. So here is the full grid. Dan Pino alongside Itamar Elimele in the front row. Ryan Anderson alongside Lucia Tosi, the leader of the championship contenders in the first two rows. Christian Ruiz is alongside Henry Fenson on the third. Chase Larson, championship leader, goes into seventh on the grid alongside the GTD leader. That's Donald Powell. Rounding out the top 10, Chris Naumann and Carlos Padilla. The battle in GTD resuming between those two. Then Alex Velasco and Kenneth Clodin on the sixth row. Nicolas Lancier and Brandon Oitmeyer. And then we've got Jim Drake and Nicholas Matthews from Edgardo Gomez and James Lambert. The last few cars in, Gavin Camber alongside Evan Laranjo in the Ford Mustang. And at the back of the field, it's going to be the Australian Gregory Chandler in the Evolution Sim Sports car. So all the drivers starting to file into position. Time to get ready for another splendiferous race for Season 9 of the High Point Racing GT World Challenge. Brought to you by our title sponsors and partners, HYMO. Obviously, all of the great work for their sim racing setups, providing all of that great standard of elevation across all of the classes. Monster Designs with their custom race liveries. Going to be exciting to see what they can produce in terms of glitz and glamour. And of course, all the team at Admin Box once again. So we've got ourselves ready for an exciting bout on the course. It's going to be another exciting challenge as the safety car will lead us off on the formation lap when it's ready to do so. And this is a difficult one again to predict, but it's going to be the cautious in those opening laps, Rob, that's really going to make a benefit on a circuit that really can bite on cold tires.
Yeah, it's been something of a bone of contention. Not necessarily bone of contention, but something drivers really struggled with, Jake. I want to say it's about 3 or 4 seasons now, so something drivers should be used to, where iRacing changed the tire model on the GT3s to make them a little more realistic to what you would see in the real life world, where the drivers in IRL, it takes them a good lap or two to really get the tires up to temp. And once iRacing implemented that a few seasons back, you know, we saw a lot of drivers really going off track, losing the back end early on the races. And a lot of tracks they've come to adjust to that, but it seems to be Watkins Glen, with it being so high speed, as I mentioned earlier, and up through the S's, where it's so far at the beginning of the lap, they just don't have that tire temp in there. We still see a lot of carnage up through the S's, and with it being so tight there, it's easy to get a track blocking situation where if you're, you know, a mid back pack, you really got nowhere to go. It's not like you can just go off the track like we saw last week at Barcelona into the kitty litter and get yourself slowed up. You really have nowhere to go. You got to try and hopefully you hamper the brakes and that car behind you doesn't get into the back. So it's going to be interesting to see how our drivers adapt to that tonight, Jake.
It certainly is. This is a circuit that really does give you plenty of satisfaction if you get it right, plenty of misery if you get it wrong. It's good for the all-rounder cars as well. No surprises that we've got the Mercedes and BMWs up at the firing end of the grid. Lucia Tosi in her Ferrari. Let's hope she has a cleaner start than she's had of late. And speaking of cleaner starts, Dan Pino on pole position. The one thing we're hoping for is that his connection stays strong. We saw it at Long Beach. We saw it at the Catalunya race as well. His race was over pretty quickly, and he's actually gone through the S's there at the chicane. Let's hope that's not an omen for something bad, because we've obviously seen it time and time again for Dan Pino. The biggest problem he's had this year has had absolutely nothing to do with his driving.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating when you know you've got the pace on track and you've just been hindered by something that's really out of your control. You know, as much as we're in 2026 and you think internet connections can be strong all across the world, sometimes just simple things like weather, solar flares, just kind of things that are out of your control kind of throw a wrench into your plans. And as you mentioned, 2 weeks in a row we've seen Daniel Pino and stuff for that, so he's no doubt going to be wanting to put in a strong performance here, and he's going to be shooting for that top spot where he qualified.
Yeah, he'll have been on the phone to his provider to say, come on guys, sort me out with a decent cable that actually works, and my wired connection can actually get me a decent result. So from the chute to the boot, from the toe to the heel, we'll finish off the formation lap, and then we'll work our way into position. Big day for Donald Powell. If he can bring that Corvette home in the top 3 minimum, but keep it in the lead in GTD, that really changes his stars in the title fight for the GTD category. And so the drivers now get themselves finding their way through the heel, and they will work their way to the final 2 or 3 corners. Not an easy race to predict this one, as it ever is in the GT World Challenge, but those Mercedes cars that very prominent so far here, Rob, it may be consistency that gets you the job done on this occasion.
Yeah, 4 Mercedes in the top 6, so it looks like it's definitely the car to have here tonight at Watkins. It's not necessarily a car-track combo that I really ever saw the Mercedes strong at. Usually the Corvettes are really potent here. The Porsches generally not so much. They fare better on the twisty tracks with the quick twisty sections, which Watkins isn't necessarily, but we're ready to go green.
We are indeed. Pino, Eleme, Anderson, Tosi, Ruiz, Fenson, and we are about to go racing, and it's green, 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 green. We're under starters orders here at Watkins Glen in the HPR GT World Challenge Season 9, and it's going to be an interesting one up the inside. Anderson's going to go for the move as Tosi has slipped through into 3rd position as well, all at the expense of Elemede, who has not had the best of starts, already slipping behind Larson and Fenson. And as we go up the climb, already there's trouble in the background. That is Donald Powell, the leader in GTD, has already gone for a spin, and that's Fenson. Fenson's lost it as well. Big disaster on the opening lap, as several cars have already come a cropper.
Yeah, that's rough to see our points leader in GTD having that early issue, but luckily for him, looks like he was able to, for the most part, avoid some catastrophic damage, Jake. So we'll see if he's able to get himself gathered back up. He's got plenty of time trying to regain his composure here, but Daniel Pino trying to make a statement here early, opened up 6/10, almost 7/10 over Ryan Anderson in 2nd place.
A clean opening lap in sim racing is almost like a 5-leaf clover. You very rarely find them, as Dan Pino has extended a decent lead on the opening tour. Anderson in front of Tosi, and we're starting to settle into a bit of a rhythm for Lucia Tosi. She's just delighted to get through the opening lap without incident, as now she has a little bit of pressure from Itamar Elemele, who finds himself in 4th position. We're on board with Lucia, looking back at the rear wing of the Ferrari. And so far, so good, as she now has the pace to do something about the championship leader. Jace Larson currently in 5th position ahead of Velasco and Ruiz. The one driver in the GTD Pro field that's down the order is, of course, Henry Fenson. We saw the Evolution Sim Sports car going around Larson, finding it tough to warm up the tyres. Good recovery from the Australian Henry Fenson, who we saw take the win last week at Catalonia. But it's definitely going to be a tougher mission. And in the background, that's a spin for one of the Porsches. That's going to be Naumann, I think. So Naumann going around, and that is a disaster for Chris Naumann, who we saw battling in the podium positions at Catalonia. He is struggling, and I think he's going to be straight into the box.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. As we just saw it out of the corner of our eye, I'll see if I can pick up a replay of that. But it looks like maybe just solo spin, but I think he got some damage early on. Might have been involved with either Fenson's spin or Powell's spin. But it looks like Christian Ruiz falling down the field too as well. He is towed to the pits.
Oh, Christian Ruiz, more bad luck for the Red Bull Mercedes. We're going to see some replays. Quite a few of them needed to come up. Oh, he just caught it on the curb. He just caught the inside curb through the left. And that is the way to get your Mercedes spat out into the barriers. There's no return from that, Rob. That is a race-ending accident.
Yeah, that was heavy contact. It's been a while since I've seen a single car spin through the S's being that heavy, Jake, but that is definitely race ending for him. No quick repairs for our drivers here in this session, so any repairs they need, they're going to have to spend that full time in pit road, and that was heavy stuff. Bumpers, fenders, body parts everywhere on the track for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, this place really does bite when it goes wrong. Here's Brandon Dittmer. looking for his opportunity to get in on Nicolas Lanciers. If he can find the gap, he's certainly going to try and go for it, but we're just settling into the rhythm now in GTD. At the moment, it is Pino, Anderson, Tosi, Elimele, and they are as close as that in GTD Pro from Larson and Velasco. Then the leader in GTD is Kenneth Clodin, ahead of Carlos Padilla and Nicholas Matthews. So all going well in both classes at the moment. There is Ken Clodin in the Ecto 1 McLaren. Looks very resplendent as ever. But Dan Pino in the Good Smile-inspired Mercedes is leading the way. And the very talented Chilean from Osorno, looking like he's got himself into a neat position. Let's ride on board then with Lucia Tosi. Let's listen in. The throttle. Getting herself ready for a push on Ryan Anderson in the BMW. 3 different manufacturers in the top 3. Big change from the start when it was all Mercedes all the way. Still got 3 of them in the top 6 though, so still a very strong car to have. But Elimele is going to start putting Lucia Tosi under some pressure. We've already seen some flashes of brilliance from Elimele, Rob, but this is the real chance for him to put on a bit of a show for us.
Yeah, he missed the first week or 2 of the season, but he's been potent since he's been involved here, Jake, and putting a ton of pressure on Tosi right now, although he has lost a couple spots, one of them to Tosi, one of them to Anderson up ahead, but the fellow who we talked about off the top came in leading the points. Basically the pillar of consistency here. Calm, cool, steady. Already picked up 2 spots, but as well, Alex Velasco in behind him. I think Velasco in a new car this week. I think we're used to seeing him in the blue Adrenaline Motorsports paint scheme. He's gone green and yellow this week, but he is up 5 spots early on.
Yeah, he's almost in Team Australia colours, isn't he, with that particular livery. Looks very cool, very resplendent. And Velasco is the man who's putting Larson under some pressure. Try and keep it out of the grass if you can, Alex. It's a very tough corner to lose it on there. Meanwhile, Fenson is working his way through the pack as he goes side by side with Jim Drake. And Fenson also finds a little bit more dirt than curb on that particular run through, as Fenson now takes him right round the outside to recover. Speaking of Jim Drake, he's battling it out with the Mexican Edgardo Gomez, who has a look for the inside line. That almost ended in tears for the Acura. And now Donald Powell and Gavin Camber are trying to make some progress. For Donald Powell, yeah, absolutely to the inside line, very nearly, as Camber hangs in behind, and it's Gomez who gets hung out to dry by both of them. So Powell and Camber find their way past Edgardo Gomez there. Lovely bit of racecraft back to the front, and it's almost as close.
Yeah, Kenneth Clodin, he's got himself up to the lead of GTD here, Jake, and he's been able to open up a little bit of a gap over Carlos Padilla in 8th place overall, 2nd in class, and Nicholas Matthews. So these are 3 of our top GTD points getters in the GTD side of things points-wise. So no doubt all 3 of them are going to want to keep eye on the trio around them and try and get around them towards the end of the race here. Still plenty of time to do it, but Nicholas Lancier kind of lurking in behind too as well. He's trying to bring Evan Laranjo and Brandon Dittmer up to that. So we're seeing a lot of 3-car packs developing here early on.
Yeah, it's interesting to try and stay in the wash. That's the big key factor in these races, and the competitors really making good use of it in the opening stages. And you can see already that Evan Laranjo really now starting to settle in the Ford Mustang. He wants to get this move on Nicholas Lanciers, one of the newest of the GT3 cars to be launched, the Mustang. I was actually there when it made its European appearance for the first time at the Spa 24 Hours 2023, and it left a lot of people with their jaws on the floor. And it's a fabulous looking machine. Out through the left to finish off the lap, the right-hander, and then back onto the home straight once again, up towards the 90 once again. Ooh, oh, close to the barriers, actually scraping the barriers there for Nicholas Lanciers. That's going to be enough momentum for Laranjo to say, thanks, mate, that's an invitation. I'll try and take that. I say try and take that because Lanciers is putting up a big fight with the Sonic the Hedgehog on the door. And up the inside as Edgardo Gomez gets the meatball flag. Laranjo's got his move. We're on board with Dittmer as he watches these 2 go side by side. Laranjo's got to try and leave some space. Dittmer's going to carry the momentum through though, and he goes by as well. So Laranjo and Dittmer are now battling for 4th position. Never mind P5, and they're going to go side by side on the run to the inner loop. It's going to be very brave to try and get through past Laranjo on the inside line, and Dittmer eventually decides, do you know what? I'll try that again on another lap.
Unfortunately there for Nicholas Lancier, one mistake out of the final corner, Jake, and cost him 2 positions, maybe even the fourth one there. Now as Henry Fenton is sniffing on his tailpipe, as he's on his recovery run. He is a GTD Pro driver, but he's definitely going to want to try and get around this trio of GTD drivers so we can try and get back into that battle for his class up ahead. But as you mentioned, Edgardo Gomez with the meatball flag. Let's take a quick look here at what happened to him, the lone Acura driver on the grid.
He's going to be following in behind camera. We saw him have that battle, and the rear gets loose in the final turn. No wonder. Goodness me, that's a big one. And that shows you why the last corner is one of the worst places on this circuit to have an incident, because it just spits you straight to the barriers. You've got no chance of getting out of that. And that's very much game over for Edgardo Gomez in very similar fashion to what we saw from Christian Ruiz. He joins Gregory Chandler and Christian Ruiz on the sideline stand as the Mexican Edgardo Gomez. Meanwhile, this is a nice little battle, and it's Itamar Elimele in front of Lucio Tosi. Let's see how he got the move. Oh, this is going to be very sweet indeed. Up the inside, just leaving enough space initially, but then Lucio Tosi has to lean back in on Itamar Elimele just to stay in the mix, and he's been given the black flag, Itamar Elimele.
Oh, yeah, he's going to give the spot back. Oh, not happy about it by the looks of it. There it is.
He turned in on Lucio Tosi as Tosi was getting through on the inside line. That is a very naughty maneuver as far as the officials are concerned. And so Itamar Elimele, he went off initially at the inner loop. That's what happened. He lost momentum. Lucio Tosi saw the gap, Damon Hill style, and thought that is the only chance I'm going to get to go for him. And Elimele turns across on Lucio Tosi to hold up the move. And I'm afraid crime doesn't pay when the officials have got your eyes very much trained on you. And so for Itamar Elimele, that's game over. What a shame.
Absolutely. I'm just having a look here at chat. We've got Army Golf BC mentioning kind of apropos at that moment that the question on everyone's mind tonight, will Lucia survive? Well, we just saw there she almost didn't, Jake, but looks like she was able to get the better of that altercation with Elimele. So what could have been for Tosi here, almost another race-ending event.
And all of that has cost her about 5 seconds to the leaders as well. So that's something that's going to be very tough to make up in the pit stops, and potentially a bit of damage there for Lucio Tosi. Not only is it going to compromise her through the stint, but now she's got to make a decision. What kind of repairs would she make in the pit stops? Would she make any at all? You've got to think about how much time you could lose as Donald Powell is pushing hard here on Nicholas Lanciers to try and get the move. Great runs so far from James Lambert. There he is in the Rexy Porsche. He's been able to make up some places. Drake is going to get the move on the inside as well. Big issues by the look of it for Lanciers. Lanciers seems to be slipping back. I wonder if he's got damage.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that wall hit that we saw him have, Jake, really, it might have either towed in or broke the suspension on the left front, but he's definitely down on pace the last couple laps. He's just basically a sitting duck when they get onto the straight, just doesn't have that top speed that the rest of the pack seems to have. But Carlos Padilla, Ruiz right now, and Nicholas Matthew battling out for second place. It's kind of allowed Kenneth Cloden to open up a little bit of a gap in class. He's now 1.3 seconds ahead of this duo.
And at Watkins Glen, that'll do quite nicely, actually. Carlos Padilla, though, the Puerto Rican, based out of Cabo Rojo, and looking very comfortable at the moment in his position. P2, as he tries to charge away from Matthews. Nicholas Matthews still giving him plenty to be focusing on. And the battle on the inset as well. Jace Larson now in P4, trying to get away from Alex Velasco. And Velasco's really stepping up the attack in his Mercedes, so that'll be an interesting battle in a few seconds. As Padilla still keeps his presence from Nicholas Matthews, and that's a spin for Dittmer. Brandon Dittmer's gone around. He's going to recover that, but I wonder how that happened, because that was halfway down the straight as well. Now, we're going to see a replay. This is Laranjo being passed by Fenson. Oh, it's self-induced. He just got one wheel on the white line, and that's enough to pirouette him around. How did everybody else miss it?
That's a good question, Jake. Normally that spells disaster for all the cars coming up behind them, and then Dittmer himself. So hats off to about 4 or 5 drivers who were able to make it through there. They recognized the yellow flag was waving, which a lot of times, you know, drivers just throw caution to the wind. They keep that right foot planted to the floor and hope for the best. But looks like everybody had cooler heads to there, realizing they still have 45 minutes left to battle.
And good reactions from Brandon Dittmer as well. He kept it out of the wall, so the only thing that would have been damaged is the tyres. Matthews hunting down Padilla into the inner loop. A lot of curb taken there by the BMW as Nicholas Matthews tries to get himself back on to the march for second position. They work their way out of that section, out of the chute into the boot. And this is where Matthews is going to put a little bit more pressure on the BMW. A little bit of a conservative line taken there by Padilla. Is he going to open the door for Matthews? Has to leave him space on the inside line as they run almost door to door. Carlos Padilla, a little bit of an error as they entered the boot section. They've come out of the toe, up to the heel. But he's got to be mindful that Matthews is going to be all over him.
Yeah, that was interesting. I thought for a moment maybe Padilla was moving wide to let Matthews through to try and tuck in behind him and save a little bit of fuel as a strategy here, Jake. But then, you know, he just kind of stayed there. Matthews stayed in behind him. Maybe Matthews recognized that and said, no, Carlos, I'm happy where I am here, saving a little bit of fuel off the back of you, and I'm just going to use that strategy in the pits to leapfrog you. So we'll see if they continue to fall back a little bit here as they're jockeying for position again. I mentioned it earlier, Claude pulling away. He's loving seeing that in his rearview mirror. It's exactly what he needs to get himself maximum points to get up into that battle for GTD.
So now that we're getting into a semblance of rhythm, it's not quite there yet in GTD. We've got this battle as well for fourth place in the pro class between Larson and Velasco. But it's proving to be, oh well, we'll talk about it in a minute because Velasco's making his move. Here comes Larson to the inside line. He'll protect that in the inner loop. Velasco really hunting him down. Forces Larson to carry more curb than he would like. And so as they work their way down to the chute, this is where Larson's going to find the pressure cooker really dialed up to 11 as Velasco is all over him. And he certainly seems to have a little bit more hunger at the moment to go for the move out through into the boot. And this is where Larson is going to have to find a bit more grip than that Mercedes to continue this position. Fourth place for him, but this does ring true to what I was going to talk about anyway, so we'll pick it up. This is quickly turning into a two-horse race for the victory in GTD Pro. Pino and Anderson separated by 3 seconds. Tozy is down to 10 seconds back. I'm not sure how much of that is down to raw pace and how much of that is down to potential damage carried from her battle with Elimele. But it's also interesting to see these two. They're slowing each other up, and Larson has now dropped almost 14 seconds to the leader, Dan Pino. And as a result of that, any chance he might have had to get back into this through the pit stops is getting less and less likely.
Yeah, if there's anything we can say about Daniel Pino other than the unfortunate internet connections he's had the last couple of weeks, is he is a pillar of consistency on track, just puts in fast lap after fast lap after fast lap, Jake. So we're not going to see him slip anytime up ahead. Speaking of slipping, we just saw Alex Velasco dive it deep into turn one. Had to use the runoff there, but that's going to cost him a ton of time in his battle with Chase Larson.
Yeah, he really wanted it in the 90, and it hasn't quite come to fruition. I'm not entirely sure whether Larson fed him that move, and he basically took the bait. And so Velasco hunted down Larson, and it hasn't quite worked out in his favor. So Lucia Tosi looking for a podium. Further back, there is the GTD battle. Kenneth Clodin is about a second in front of Padilla and Matthews. Matthews slides out a little bit wider through the curbs. God, that was a good save, wasn't it? Nicholas Matthews very nearly chucking the Porsche away, Rob, and at that speed and at that velocity, your race would have ended.
I'm wondering if maybe he only saved that because of the Porsche, having a little bit extra weight over that rear axle, Jake. I think if he was in maybe one of the front motor cars, the Mercedes, the Mustang, the back end, just wouldn't have had that weight there where he could have saved that. It probably would have just snapped around on him. So Big Nick and Nicholas Matthews lucky to save that one through there, but that's going to heat his tires up a little bit here. So they're going to be a little greasy for about half a lap or so they can get them back under control here temp-wise. So we'll see if Padilla able to capitalize. But looks like Padilla just has a strategy in play here. Looks like he's got a number he's shooting for lap after lap here, Jake. Not really pushing the limit. I think if Matthews were to make the play up the inside of him, I think Padilla would probably just let him go. It looks like he's on a contemporary fuel-saving mission here.
Yeah, Jeremy Clarkson once referred to the Porsche 911 as nothing more than a turbocharged Beetle, but say what you like about that car, it's certainly giving Nicholas Matthews the chance to have a second chance, as it were. As we come out of the final turn, he's still got something to Carlos Padilla here. He still has rhythm and fluidity. Let's join him as they go to the 90 on board. Brake, turn in, down through the gears, back up, third, fourth, ride it through the right-hander. One wheel on the white line would be enough, up to fifth, through the left. Look at the toe he gets from Carlos Padilla. This is such a strong opening sector. Up in the sixth gear, he's got another bit of toe. But will there be enough momentum to have a look into the inner loop? Not if Carlos Padilla is going to put the BMW in the middle of the road like that. Beautiful defense from the Puerto Rican. That's exactly where you need to be to keep Nicholas Matthews at bay. This is a masterclass battle.
Yeah, I'm wondering if something might have happened to Kenneth Cloden too as well, as they've closed that gap down a little bit. It was about 1.2 seconds heading into the bus stop there, Jake, but he's opened it back up a little bit. He had it high just under 2 seconds last time I checked in, last lap by, so maybe Cloden as well realizes they're battling a little bit in behind him. He could back off a little bit, save a little bit of fuel.
Oh.
As
Velasco's got Larson. Sorry, Rob. Velasco's got Larson, so something's happened there between those two. Yep, Velasco has finally got his man. And Velasco has worked his way into fourth position. Let's see how it happened. It was out of the chute and into the boot. Did he make the move into the toe? He's come from the outside as well, and they actually banged wheels as they went through. He's never got him round the outside. Well, he's certainly set up the overtake, and he's kept his rhythm and memento flowing, and he's kept it on. That is incredible from Alex Velasco to get the move there of all places, and in the fashion he's done it. That is a sweet move from Alex Velasco.
Talk about going wide to set up a strong run down the straight, Jake. I thought that was a mistake by Velasco going out wide, but almost looked like a strategy play there, trying to get the late apex, get an excellent run down the straight. He was able to utilize it on that McLaren, which usually we don't see get past in a straight line, but one car in the GT3 category that has a ton of horsepower comparable to the McLaren is that Mercedes.
If in doubt, flat out. He's made it work around the outside, but Larson's going to try and come back at him into the inner loop again. No chance. Alex Velasco's going to go full Gandalf on him. You shall not pass. He's going to hold that inside line to ransom. And Velasco now in P4, but of course there's a big deficit back to Lucia Tosi. He's got to try and find 5 to 6 seconds before the pit stops, which are not far away, folks. Up the inside, Larson tries again. Velasco keeping that Mercedes so wide, on board with Larson, down to the toe of the boot. Perfect placement for Velasco, holds the inside line, but he gets a little bit loose on the brakes, and Larson's got a chance. Back on the power. Just not quite enough grunt for the McLaren to get level with the Mercedes, and he's going to have to go for it another point on the circuit. But this is fantastic. Tom and Jerry meet sim racing. These two are absolutely on it as they swap different lines, change and exchange position. This is exactly what you want, and this is the battle that could go to the checkered.
Yeah, that alternate line that Velasco is running, Jake, a line that I mentioned earlier, I don't see that line very often, as we see the McLaren getting real loose up over the curb, and I think he bottomed out a little bit for Larson. He was able to gather back up. That alternate line through the toe of the boot seems to be working real well for Velasco, but Larson trying to make the play on the outside. He's going to make the move around the outside, just like Velasco did to him.
Beautiful. That's tit for tat. And they both drift out wide out of the 90. So Velasco fancies it again up the hill, side by side. What a position to do it, and Larson hangs on to it for the moment. But I tell you what, these guys are made of stirred stuff. If you're ready to go wheel to wheel up the hill here at Watkins Glen, you are made of serious stuff as the first big pit stop comes in, and it's from Laranjo. Laranjo's made the pit stop. I don't know whether that was scheduled. It looks like he's retired. So the Ford Mustang has had a problem for Evan Laranjo. We're going to need to have a look and see what happened to him. But Evan Laranjo has joined the retirements list by the look of it. It was initially in pit, but it looks as though he's... Oh, no, he has rejoined. My apologies. So I don't know whether that was just a scheduled pit stop for Evan Laranjo and he was the first one to make it, or whether there was an incident that inspired that pit stop initially. We'll find out shortly.
Yeah, I'm having a look at timing and scoring. A little bit of mixed communication on timing and scoring here, Jake. Showing he entered pits, as you mentioned, but then jumped to pits. So I'm not sure. Maybe he missed a stall or something and had to back out. But we'll see if we can kind of decipher that and pick back up later. I'll check on my second screen here, and if I see something, we can go have a look at what happened.
And the Ferrari of Gavin Camber seems to have hit some trouble as well. Maybe that could have some sort of relation to what happened, because Laranjo and Camber in the pits at similar times. So I'm not entirely sure whether there was an incident again that forced the issue for the Ferrari. Meanwhile, while we wait for the update on that, Padilla versus Matthews still going, still in the fight for second place, and they are reeling in Kenneth Cloden. It's like a kart race up front between these two at the moment. They're working in unison to close up on that McLaren, and it's working beautifully, riding on the wing of the Ecto 1 machine. Up through the right-hander, up the climb, and you can see for yourself that Padilla and Matthews are much closer than they were. Jim Drake in pit lane, and it is about the right time for pit stops. So I'm assuming now that any visits to the pits are pretty much on schedule, but Gavin Camber hasn't rejoined from his pit stop. Jim Drake is in the pits, and it looks as though, well, we're going to see some incidents here, I think. So that's Gavin Camber. Oh, he's got crabbing. He's got crabbing on that Ferrari big time. He can't even hold it in a straight line. Bang! Into the barriers again. You know what, mate? Park it. I think that's exactly what he's decided to do.
Yeah, this should tell us what happened to him to get that crabbing damage here, Jake.
Oh, out of the inner loop. Oh, that is a monster shun. So easy for that car to get loose in the inner loop. If you lose it there, you've got no prayer at all. So Gavin Camber out of the race with a big shot. He tried to keep it going and get back to the pits. And that's Evan Laranjo going wide. We're going to see a replay of what happened to him. So he drops it. Donald Powell in the Corvette gets in front. And is there going to be another moment for Evan Laranjo that forced the issue? Trying to see what happens.
I think he hit that wall and got some damage, Jake, but not sure what happened afterwards. I think he just called it quits. Towed off to the pits here.
Yeah, so the Laranjo
Lambert's going to get by him here too as well, I think, if we go a little farther ahead.
Yeah, so this is Lambert in the Rexy Porsche. And Laranjo is going to, yeah, Laranjo just decided, you know what, the car doesn't feel right. It feels off. Going to bring it in, and with enough damage to end his chances competitively, he's decided Watkins Glen is not for me. So Jim Drake having a similar issue as well, but he has got going again by the look of things, so he's now rejoined. Goodness me, this is a race of attrition. I make it 14 cars now that are in the race left, so only 14 drivers still going. This is going to be a race of who survives, never mind who wins. But look at how quickly Padilla and Matthews have rained down on Kenneth Cloden. GTD is still very much open season, and through the pit stops, this is going to be a sensational challenge.
Wondering if Cloden was going to dive off to the pits this time by, try and relieve some of that pressure, as he can see that Padilla and Matthews have a little more pace here right now. Jake, I'm wondering if he wants to battle with them or just pull off, let them go through, maybe get some fresh tires, splash of fuel, come back out, maybe he can find some clean track to open up that gap again.
Not going to be easy to see what happens next. They've got Velasco just in front of them now as well, so that duel between Larson and Velasco has really held them up, and as a result, the GTD boys are catching up as well. Cloden's doing his best. He really wants to get ahead of Velasco before the pit stops, because that puts the Mercedes between himself and the Padilla-Matthews squabble, and that just buys him a little bit of extra time. Meanwhile, Henry Fenson has climbed himself up into that little mix of cars, so he is currently 9th overall. That certainly helps him out. Jace Larson, meanwhile, still holding station. Let's look and see where Fenson is in relation to these boys. There he is. So that's actually a lot of time made up from the Aussie flyer. He's done a good job there, Henry Fenson, after that first lap spin. He seems to have kept a reasonable car underneath him. It's not out of the question with the battles that we've had so far and the errors that drivers are making. If he just keeps it together, a podium might not be out of the question in GTD Pro.
Yeah, it'd be a heck of a recovery by Fenson if he can recover from that first lap spin up against the wall here. Jake can find himself maybe up in the top 5 in GTD Pro after working his way through the GTD class, but he can see those guys battle up ahead of them. He'd love to see them start going toe-to-toe, trading punches, and let him close right back in.
Well, to give you an idea of how tough this race has been on attrition, 1/3 of the field is out of the race, and we're not even at half distance yet. That is how tough this race has already been, and we've still got half an hour left of it. This man, though, has not made it look difficult at all. Dan Pino extending his lead now to just a whisker over 3.5 seconds. And he is finally having a race that he can be happy with. Finally, it's coming his way. Hopefully it stays that way. But Dan Pino, loving life in the lead at Watkins Glen, and he's got such fluidity, metronomic consistency. And his Mercedes from High Point Racing is just driving because he loves it. Absolutely brilliant from Dan Pino thus far. Anderson still in the mix, still with contention. Lucia Tosi looking to contain that third position in the Ferrari. Behind her, you can see that is the Corvette, I think, that is still in the mix.
Gomez.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah.
It is Gomez, yeah. So Gomez, having recovered from his earlier incident, he's got back into the race again in the Acura. Here we go. Larson and Velasco pitting together. That'll be nice for us. That'll give us a little bit of entertainment.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle to see who gets the jump off the pits here. Jake, I wonder if there's going to be a 2 versus 4 tire strategy here. We see Velasco goes up on the jacks. He's definitely taking tires. Larson too as well. I suspect probably 4 tires for both of them. They're going to need about 20 to 22 seconds of fuel, and in iRacing, that's enough time to get yourself 4 tires within that fuel window.
Yeah, so is the offset of taking only 2 tires and the advantage that gives you worth extending? Larson is out first by quite a way. Velasco joins him, so I think they've gone exactly the same strategy, but just a little bit eager from Larson to get out of the box, and it's just bought him a few extra seconds. I wonder if he spent a little bit less time on repairs just to try and get him that little bit further. You will always see a bit more of a gamble in the pit stops with the GTD Pro drivers than you will with GTD. They usually tend to play it safe and go for 4 tires if they're going to change tires in the pit stops. Look at this between the GTD drivers. It's now a train of 3, nose to tail. Clodin has been well and truly mullered by these two. Padilla and Matthews want to get in before the pit stop window if they can. And so with half an hour to go, Kenneth Clodin is under massive pressure here from Carlos Padilla and Nicholas Matthews, and they are going to make him sweat.
Yeah, I wonder if all 3 will pull into the pits here this time, or they'll try and go 1 more lap here, Jake. Looks like Clodin going to go around again. Matthews is going to be the first one to dive off.
Right, Matthews is going to go for the undercut here. This could be really smart from the Porsche driver, Rob. When you've got that train of cars and 3 drivers to battle with, sometimes playing it smart is what makes the difference.
For sure. And then we see our pole sitter in GTD coming in too as well, Donald Powell. So hats off to him. Had that first lap spin, as I mentioned. It looked like he was able to keep it off the wall or just suffer minor damage there, Jake. He's been able to get himself to the routine pit stop here. Give him a chance to fix a little bit of repairs, get himself regrouped. Splash of water, splash of fuel, some fresh rubber, get back out on track and see what he can do.
And Lambert's coming as well in the Rexy Porsche, so it's a busy pit lane at the moment as we approach half distance here. Dan Pino still having a very solid race of it. And there's Anderson. So Anderson's not that far away. He's done a fantastic job to stay with Dan Pino. As much as we're singing the praises of Pino, Anderson has not given up his designs on the win at all. He is still right there. All it takes is 1 blip. Oh, and there is the blip. It's Alex Velasco. Velasco loses it out of the 90. And that ends any chance he might have had of getting on terms with Jace Larson. Cold tyres, so easily done out of the pits as Dan Pino goes into them. Let's see what happened to Velasco, but I think it's pretty cut and shut. Curb, throttle, fraction of a second too early, and bang! Velasco in the wall. That's so gut-wrenching for Alex Velasco. Such a great drive up to then.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. Tried pushing it a little harder up on the curves without those tires back up to temp, as you mentioned, Jake. So we'll see our leader now into the pits. It's going to allow Ryan Anderson to do 1 more lap here at Watkins, Jake. So I'm wondering maybe Anderson had the pace, but just hanging back a little bit to fuel save and get that extra lap. As normally we see Pino really push the limits here with the fuel. He usually goes absolutely as long as he can. So we'll see. Maybe this is the Galaxy Brain strategy that Ryan Anderson needed to try and get ahead of Daniel Pino.
Yeah, Tosi chose this lap to pit as well, so she keeps herself in the game. So not a bad strategy for her. Henry Fenson continues on to try and push. Half distance then here in the HPR GT World Challenge Season 9, brought to you by our corporate partners, HYMO. doing fantastic job. Hymo with their professional sim racing setups and elevating the standard of racing across all the classes. The winner of this race will get a 1-month Hymo subscription, of course. Monster Designs with their custom race liveries, providing professional designs and branding across the season. And of course, our supporting sponsor, Admin Box, helping us on the role of broadcast and operations support with all of their help with race control and organisation to keep the championship as professional as it is. Meatball flag for Gavin Camber. So he obviously came back out of the pits, and as you can see for yourself, that Ferrari is well and truly cooked.
Yeah, I think maybe he went to the pits, forgot to turn the car off, and iRacing has this thing, sits there for a certain amount of time. Jake, it'll actually overheat the engine and blow, so looks like Gavin Camber will not be coming back on track now, regardless of how much repairs he's done. But our leader, Ryan Anderson, into the pits. We'll see if Pino is able to get back around him, or if this extra lap has really worked out to Anderson's advantage.
And how much time will Anderson be able to gain in this pit stop? He was less than 4 seconds behind him when Pino pitted initially. Henry Fenson comes into the pits as well, but this is the key one. Anderson wants to jump Pino. How aggressive will he go on the pit stop strategy just in order to get ahead of Pino? Pino's really pushing it in the penultimate turn, goes over the curbs in his attempts to beat Anderson out of the final turn. And I wonder if Anderson's actually going to try and be a little bit more eager on the pit stop itself as Pino goes past him for the lead. I wonder if Anderson decides to put a bit more on.
Right,
well, he's certainly gained. Look, he's really gained as Pino drifts wide out of the 90. That is not much in it at all, Rob. He really has made a decent gain.
Yeah, Anderson going to need that lap to get his tires back up to temp, though. But this is his chance, Jake. He's got that gap. He's in the draft. About 8/10 back is the draft range in iRacing here, so he's within the draft. If he can stick on the back of Pino, we might see the battle for the top spot on the podium here for the last 25 minutes.
Ryan Anderson has not given up on this win at all. He was within 4 seconds before the pit stop. He's gained 3 during them. And now it's all about the man from Chile up front, Dan Pino. Can he hold on to this advantage in the lead? This is going to be a fascinating final half of the race as Lucia Tosi looks pretty safe and serene in 3rd position, and that's going to help her in the championship fight. Jace Larson is only P4, but Lucia Tosi with a great chance to catch up a little bit in the championship fight after the misery of Catalunya. Now she's got a chance to really put some more pressure on Jace Larson in the title fight.
Yeah, and probably the utmost importance for her behind the wheel is there's nobody else around her. She's suffered some unfortunate contact from other drivers the last couple of races that have kind of cost her the race. And right now, as you mentioned, she got a nice 15-second buffer to Anderson ahead, 8 seconds to Larson in behind. So she just needs to keep her head down, keep putting in the laps, take that 3rd step on the podium finish, take those points, and laugh her way into next week.
And there's no reason why the Pino and Anderson battle couldn't become more intense in the latter stages. So if Lucia Tosi just keeps it on the island, she may get a free gift. So Anderson up the hill again. And you can see now that Pino's back into the rhythm. It was a bit of a moment there for Anderson when he could have got close enough to Dan Pino to really get inside his head. But that is a psychological wall to try and get into Dan Pino's mind. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's got good rhythm, good fluidity in this car. And as long as there are no mistakes, it's looking likely that Dan Pino is finally going to get a result he deserves rather than a bit of an annoying day at the office. Meanwhile, the GTD battle, nothing has changed. Clodin, Matthews, Padilla. Although Matthews is now ahead of Padilla after the pit stops. Well, that's a big jump for Nicholas Matthews. That's what we're talking about. He's made the jump in the pit stops. Or was it on the track itself? It was indeed by the look of it. So Padilla's drifted wide. Matthews has forced him to go wide. Absolutely brilliant from Nicholas Matthews. Padilla going for the move back again to the inside. But the Porsche's got the balance to the outside line, holds the place. Well done to Nicholas Matthews. Intimidation, and he makes it work.
Yeah, we saw Matthews putting a ton of pressure on the back of Ruiz Padilla before the pit stops, and he finally found a way around. I think it was going to be at the point where Matthews was really going to have to force the inside and force that way around, as you mentioned a number of times. Padilla putting on a bit of a workshop on defensive driving, making that already wide BMW even wider than it was here tonight, Jake. But Matthews finally found a way around, so we'll see if he can kind of stretch his legs now to chase down in Cloden, who they had caught before the pit cycles, but he's opened up 4 seconds now over this duo.
22 minutes left of this race, but it's always going to be a tricky one in the closing stages. But Ken Clodin, look at that. Nice bit of daylight between himself and Matthews. Not much daylight, though, because the sun is starting to set here. But Kenneth Clodin certainly has the legs on the drivers behind him, and this is turning into a Kenneth Clodin roadshow up front. He's got Fenson just up the road ahead of him, who is all the way back into 5th position after a great comeback drive from the Australian. Not where he wanted to be, but he'll certainly pick up some decent points in the title fight. Jace Larson looking okay for P4 at present, and that's not bad for the championship leader. He's obviously got about 8 points coming into this race on Lucia Tosi, but it's certainly been Lucia's day as far as getting the upper hand in the title fight is concerned. But as we ride on board with the McLaren, 4th place under the circumstances, that'll do quite nicely.
Yeah, we can see Fenson starting to lurk into the camera shot in the background there. Jake, I've been watching the delta here between the two of them, and Fenson really eating into it here, so I'm not sure if maybe Larson took a little bit of strategy, maybe didn't quite get all the fuel load during his pit stop, and we saw he was able to get out quite a bit ahead of Alex Velasco when they both came in at the same time, so maybe having to save a little bit of fuel here for Larson to get to the end, where Fenson looks like he's got the full complement of fuel that he needs, and he's really pushing. Now has that gap down to just over 3 seconds.
Well, for Henry Fenson, he had absolutely nothing to lose after his spin on the first lap, so he could go a little bit more aggressive on the strategy, and as a result, he can just push like stink. He probably took 4 tyres in the pit stop as well, just to go, what the hell, let's just go for it and see what happens. Nothing to lose, nothing that can really go wrong now. So from Fenson's point of view, he has a much stronger, faster, and certainly a better health car than Jace Larson, who's into nursing mode in that second stint, because Fenson can throw caution to the wind. Speaking of which, that is a proper kiss of the barrier from Henry Fenson. That's worth a slow-mo, as we can see just how hard Henry Fenson is pushing to try and close up on Jace Larson. That is as close to a race-ending incident as you can get without it actually ending his race. Fenson is absolutely leaning on it as he tries to close in on Jace Larson. You can see the sparks flying between car and barrier as he went through. Very Charles Leclerc at Monaco yesterday. So fabulous stuff as they race for position. But Pino, 5 seconds now in front of Anderson. He really has got back into the zone in the lead of this race, and that really does shut down any hope, for the moment at least, from Ryan Anderson. Once you've got a decent cushion, mind you, Pino is still making those errors, isn't he? He hasn't quite got it perfect yet. He's got pace, he's got good fluidity, but those slight errors are still creeping in.
Yeah, unfortunately for Ryan Anderson, looked like the perfect storm to lose that time to Pino last lap, with Pino putting in the fastest lap of the race with a 1:44.87 last time by. First driver to dip into the 44s. Everybody else has only been mid-45s at the closest, so really stretching out his legs that time. And he goes ahead and betters it this time, 1:44.49, but Ryan Anderson had a slowdown last lap, and he was only able to put in a 1:47.8 this time by 45.65, so back on his pace. But seems like Daniel Pino really coming into his own here with 18 minutes to go, finding those fast laps lap after lap.
So 15 drivers still running, the last of which is Edgardo Gomez, who, oh, it looks as though he has actually parked it again now. He had an incident, got back out on the circuit, and now it looks like he has returned to the pits once again. So issues all around. Here we go again. This battle between Matthews and Padilla. They're now 3.5 seconds back from the leader Clodin in GTD, but Matthews and Padilla are still going to give us a bit of a rout here. On board with Nicholas Matthews as we go up the climb. And watch the toe. The BMW is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger on the run to the inner loop. Cue the Jaws music. That BMW starting to flash the headlights as well. Gets really tight in the inner loop as we rumble over the curbs. And Nicholas Matthews definitely having a sweat on now as Carlos Padilla really making him work for it. He wants to get this second place back again. He held it for the majority of the early part of the race, and now he fancies his chances to get back through. It's only a Porsche. I could take that on.
As we go on board with Padilla, you hear him kind of running up the rev limiter there for the last minute, trying to maximize the run. I think he's kind of in between gears in a number of these corners here. Jake, maybe that could be hampering a little bit the gearing on the BMW. Maybe not quite as optimal as it is on the Porsche, but we'll see here if Padilla able to make his way around. He was looking menacing. Just kind of timed the razzle-dazzle with the headlights at the perfect time for Matthews as he was just getting ready to enter into the bus stop there, trying to break his concentration, trying to find a way around him. But now it's a matter of trying to fill those mirrors, trying to break the focus of Matthews and trying to find a way back around.
It's that part of the race where you're spending 50% looking forward, 50% on the rear view mirror as well. You want to see where your opponent is so you can prepare yourself into the next apex. And the second you start looking back, you're instantly slower. Look at this, here comes the chance for Padilla. He's going to dive in on the inside in the 90. He's going to commit. Matthews has got to leave him space because he's enough alongside that there could be contact, but he holds it round the outside for the moment. But this is where Padilla is definitely going to have a chance in the slipstream. As we go up the hill, he's closer than he's been for quite some time up this section. So we ride on board. Padilla, closer, closer. The inner loop. Matthews has got to play it smart on the inside line, protect his line. Doesn't even need to get across it to defend the position. Skates across the curb, kicks out on the exit of it. And Brandon Dittmer's been given a black flag, so something's happened to Brandon Dittmer. He was battling it out with Lanciers at the tail end of the field. What's happened to Brandon Dittmer? Let's find out. Into the 90. And he loses the back end. Oh, what a miserable day at the office for Brandon Dittmer. It was going so well in the first 10 minutes, and it's all fallen apart.
Yeah, I think that would be incident point limit for Dittmer, so he's going to have to serve the drive-through, as that was just a solo spin. So not going to be a black flag for getting into anybody here, Jake. So unfortunately, the rough night going to get rougher for Dittmer.
It's one of the toughest things about iRacing is the incident points. It's something that a driver who's a bit more kamikaze like me can never quite get on the right side of. I've only taken 2 iRacing wins in the last 7 years. It's not exactly my favorite, but it just shows you how tough it is to be competitive at the sharp end. And it's so easy to let mistakes creep in. It shows you just how good these particular sim racers are to be as strong and as fluid as they are. It's all about one thing, Rob, at this level. It's confidence. You've got to have confidence in yourself, confidence in the car, confident in the tires. That's how you get these brilliant races won.
Yeah, we see a lot of drivers in, I guess it's sim racing in general, kind of jump from one car to the next, trying to find that optimal car for each track, where a league like this, where you're pretty much locked into what car you pick throughout the entire season, it really gets you more accustomed to the car, Jake, and finding the strengths and the weaknesses of that car. And we're seeing here as the season progresses, the drivers really come to grips with the cars that they've chosen to run the season here with especially with this battle we're watching here between Matthews and Padilla. Each driver really utilizing the strengths of that car and trying to maximize their effort on the weaknesses of the other car that they're battling.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I always love it when you've got a championship that locks a driver into one car for the whole season. Look back to Long Beach, where Jace Larson was so strong compared to everybody else out there in the field. Here, he's 30 seconds back from Dan Pino, so it really does show you that from one race circuit to the next, you don't have it all your own way. You've really got to work to find that consistency and figure out what's going to be best. Look at this, though. Jace Larson, 4th position, and there is Henry Fenson. He's right there. So Fenson has made up so much time, and Jace Larson suddenly finds himself in a rock and a hard place. This is a fantastic battle now, as Fenson has got himself a chance to really attack Larson. This is a problem for the McLaren.
Yeah, what we wouldn't have thought would have happened for Fenson after that first lap incident, Jake. I'm no doubt if we were to interview him after, I think he'd be happy with getting anything in the top 5 after that incident. And it looks like he really has the feelers out here to try and take that spot from Larson. But welcome in, Mr. Alex Goldschmidt. Oh, he's popped out, but We'll see if maybe he pops back in, but we got a battle here for final spot in the just off the podium between these two here, Jake.
Here we go, Fenson's in the slipstream. He's going to have his chance on Larson, but he's not quite close enough at the right time into the inner loop as they hop over the curbs again. Fenson knows that it's very much 12 minutes of intimidation for Jace Larson. This is not good news for the McLaren driver at all. The championship leader suddenly finds that Fenson's got nothing to lose behind him, and this is where it can all fall apart for Jace Larson. He's got an 11-second deficit to Tozy, who's going to gain on him in the championship anyway, and now Fenson can really make this come to him. Right, Padilla is going to try and get back in on Matthews in the inset. So we've got two stunning battles here at the title fight of both classes. Larson really sweating under the weight of Fenson's attack. This is going to be so difficult to get right.
There's the move, Fenson to the inside. I think Larson recognizing that it doesn't really have much to keep Fenson at bay here.
He's going to fight him, though. He's going to push him to the ragged edge. This is not an easy one, and Larson holds on around the outside for the moment. But Fenson is definitely hunting him down and looking for that onslaught. It's not going to be long. Larson is definitely going to find it tricky to keep Fenson at bay. That's what 4 fresh tyres, which we guess is what's been the strategy for Fenson on that one. He's just got much more confidence in the car. He'd already lost everything on the first lap, so he can just throw caution to the winds on strategy. And it's given him this little bit of extra momentum. Look how much he's gaining already as we go up towards the inner loop. He could overtake him before they even get to the braking zone. Goes right to the outside because that's where Larson's going to put him. Level alongside. And again, Larson protects, but he's had to compromise himself on racing line. So Fenson still has a chance as they head down to the chute. Out through the right-hander. Fenson is absolutely on the warpath. He can get a bit more aggressive on the line. He almost draws level as they get down to the boot. This is fantastic, Rob.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Fenson hasn't been able to make this move. We're pretty sure he went with 4 tires, and he's really trying to capitalize on that advantage here, Jake. But we see him starting to take that alternate line through the toe of the boot that we saw Velasco take. Seems like it really works from the Mercedes. Allows him to get a nice run up the hill and potentially make a move on the inside here of Larson. But I think if I was Fenson right now, I'd kind of stay tucked in behind Larson, set something up for maybe turn 1, and try and hold him off into the bus stop.
So now we're going to see just how much more pressure Fenson can put on Jace Larson. Goodness me, they're leaning on the ragged edge here, Rob. This is so minimal in terms of margin for error. Fenson's still coming straight at it.
Let's see what kind of run Fenson gets into turn 1 here.
Still pushing, looking for that gap on the inside. Wow, this is so tough between these two, isn't it? Fascinating to see just how tight it could get.
Fenson's starting to drive a little ragged now, Jake. We're seeing him get up on the curbs a number of times here, so trying to force his way into the inside, but Larson already has him covered here. He's going to try and pinch Larson into the inside line, going to bleed out left to make the run into the bus stop, trying every which way he can to get around Larson, but excellent job by Jace Larson right now, holding off the advances by Henry Fenson.
I think Fenson senses that this mistake is coming from Jace Larson. He knows that he can be just that little bit more aggro, and 4th position may not take that long for the man from Sydney to steal. Meanwhile, Padilla still hunting Matthews. 2nd place is still very much up for grabs in GTD. But in the pro category, Fenson is all over Jace Larson. 2 great battles in this course. Still an amazing tally of only 14 cars left running in this race now. This is astonishing. Edgardo Gomez is still circulating, by the way, but he's 5 laps down. So technically speaking, it's showing up that he is in the same boat as the likes of Laranjo, Camber, eliminate Chris Naumann and Christian Ruiz. So Henry Fenson still putting Jace Larson under massive pressure. Carlos Ruiz Padilla, likewise to Nicholas Matthews. The battle for second in GTD, as intense as the battle for fourth in GTD Pro, and Larson nearly kissing the wall on the way out of the final turn again. This is sensational racing between these two, and this is the closest battle we've got in GTD Pro. Pino has pulled out 11 seconds now on Anderson. That looks like the win is very much with the good smart Mercedes. Mistake from Larson, and this could be the chance from Fenson round the outside of turn 2 as they go up the climb side by side, and Fenson is going to squeeze to the wall. Jace Larson, is there going to be enough momentum? They're going to be wheel to wheel. Larson's got the inside line for the inner loop, but Fenson is just about enough on the inside. They're going to go door to door as they go through the inner loop. There's nothing in it. Up and over the curbs, and Larson hangs on. My goodness. Great racecraft between these two men.
Fenson's got to be wondering, what do I got to do to get around this guy, Jake? He's tried the inside, tried the outside. He's been ahead. He's tried to outbrake Larson. Larson, at every opportunity, has found a way to fight back.
Still nearly in each other's door handles as we go into the toe of the boot. Larson holds the inside line. Fenson coming at him again. Short rotation on the inside radius from Larson. That could be enough for Fenson. He knows he's got to leave space, Larson. So Fenson will attack to the outside. Surely that's going to be game over. But Larson will have the inside line again. Fenson rotates around. He's got him. Brilliant racecraft from Henry, and absolutely slam dunks the McLaren. Fenson into P4. It took him a lap to really get the job done once he was on the attack, but it's not over. Larson now is the hunter, and he fancies a chance to get back on the Mercedes. But they were side by side, Rob, for almost half a lap.
The netcode gods giveth and taketh away sometimes, Jake Sanson, but luckily they gave it to us that time, and we got to see some excellent door-to-door battling. Hats off to these two drivers, but as you said, Jace Larson not ready to go by the wayside. He's going to keep battling for the final 5 minutes here to see if he can get that spot back. But you know what? It's actually I think we're safe to say that's the battle of the race there right now.
Excellent racing, absolutely. And so now it's up to Henry Fenson to extend that margin. Meanwhile, Matthews has given himself a little bit of breathing space to Carlos Padilla, almost a second, as they go into the last 5 minutes here at Watkins Glen. It's been a very tough season, as we know, but a wonderful race battle between Nicholas Matthews and Carlos Ruiz Padilla for that second place. It's not over between Fenson and Larson. Larson is smarting a little bit from that duel. And of course, don't forget that Henry Fenson has taken crucial points in the championship away from Jace Larson. The McLaren just hasn't had the pace here at Watkins Glen compared to what we saw in previous races. But Fenson, that just shows you, doesn't it? We have no idea what might have been had he not spun on the first lap. Fenson could easily have been in amongst Pino and Anderson fighting for the win, but once you've lost that momentum on a circuit like this when the tyres are already cooked, we'll never know just how competitive Henry Fenson could have been.
You know what, Jake? Things aren't quite settled over in GTD either. This duo is caught up to Kenneth Cloden again, kind of similar to what we saw before the pit stops, where they closed up on the back of Cloden. He was able to utilize his quick stop to get back up ahead of him, but they're now just 1.9 seconds back of him. With 4 minutes to go, it's going to be about probably 3 laps left in this race. So we might still see a battle for top spot here in GTD if Matthews and Padilla can kind of work together here and chase down Cloden.
Such a good point, because he was a good 5-6 seconds clear at one point in this second stint, wasn't he? So he has lost a lot of time consistently rather than a big error, I think. But with only 14 cars left, we've certainly got high attrition. 21 started, only 14 survive. Some big incidents here. We obviously had an early race incident for Gregory Charlotte. Black flag now for Alex Velasco. I wonder if he's picked up enough incident points that he's got to pick up a black flag. So unfortunate for Alex Velasco. He was wheel to wheel with Jace Larson earlier on and certainly had a great race of it. So Velasco, I think he's just tripped over the line now for black flag incidents. Very nearly a race retirement himself at one stage. But Edgardo Gomez, he's still circulating, although 5 laps down, he is showing up on the live timing as being a man out of contention. Evan Laranjo, he had problems in the Mustang. Gavin Camber, he hit the wall very badly out of the inner loop, and that ended his race because the car was crabbing like crazy. Itamar Elamele, that very controversial duel that he had with Lucia Tosi, he made the mistake in the inner loop. Tosi went for the gap on the inside of the next right-hander, and Elamele shut the door on the inside of Lucia Tosi and got spat out into the wall, ending his own race essentially. Chris Nauman, goodness knows how competitive he could have been in this race. We know from earlier in the season how good Chris Nauman could be, but this race just wasn't to be. He had that spin earlier on. Brandon Dittmer's in pit lane now as well. So I wonder if Brandon Dittmer has joined the retirements list. Gomez is back in pit lane as well. Let's see. Brandon Dittmer, he obviously had a black flag earlier on. So what's happened? That's several times now for Brandon Dittmer that the back end's just got away from him. He was so strong in the early part of the race. I wonder if one of those points of contact has just messed with the rear suspension. Ah, yeah, there you go. You can see for yourself that Brandon Dittmer's carrying a lot of rear damage, and so essentially the back has become almost too hot to handle.
Yeah, unfortunate for him. Tough car to hold on to, Jake, when you get damage on the back end. Just relies so much to having that weight over the back end, but we see now kind of Claude kind of stabilize that gap a little bit over Nicholas Matthews. So maybe he just backed off to control things a little bit, allowed them to close in, and now he's just gonna say, Nick, Carlos, I gave you a chance to catch up, but here I'm going to show the might of the Ecto 1 here and pull back out ahead. So we'll see if Claude able to hold on to that. He's got a minute and a half to go. That's going to be one more lap when he crosses the line here. So if Matthews and Padilla have something to offer him, they need to step on the go pedal now.
Now Jim Drake is in pit lane, so it looks as though we may only get 12 cars finishing the race, or at least it was showing that Jim Drake was in pit lane. So I don't know whether that was a glitch on the timing or whatever it might have been, but Jim Drake hasn't exactly had the easiest race either, and it looks as though he's going to be our bookend, so to speak, as he will be the last man home. 13 cars still running then, but certainly not easy. In the last minute, this is the last lap for Dan Pino. And it has to be said that after all of the connection issues he's had so far this season, we'll never know how strong he could have been at Long Beach. We'll never know how strong he could have been in Canada. We'll never know how strong he could have been at Catalonia. But today, finally, Rob, it's his day. What a drive.
Yeah, I think there's probably nobody happier to see the finish line tonight than Daniel Pino, doing it not in the pits. So well done to him. He's been battling all throughout the season. Quick driver. He's had the same kind of issues in the IMSA series on Thursdays too as well. So I think I've had those internet issues myself before, and it's a real gremlin to deal with. And he's going to breathe a sigh of relief here once he crosses the start-finish line tonight, Jake.
Yeah, as have I. It's never easy when you know that there are decent points on offer and they're taken away through circumstances outside your control. So many missed opportunities in Season 9. So many missed moments as Velasco is going to crawl across the line just to get a finish. He lets Dan Pino go. What a shame for Velasco. But it's going to be victorious Dan Pino at last. So many near misses, but today he's made it his own. He wins at Watkins Glen, cruising over the line and power sliding across it. He enjoys himself in the win of this one. Fair play to Dan Pino. What a way to win it. Anderson comes home for second place, and a brilliant try from him as well. In the championship fight, though, the big scalp today comes from Lucia Tosi, and deservedly so. After all of the aggravation she's had to suffer in recent weeks, she finally gets a clean race and the podium she deserves. Well done to Lucia Tosi. What a fight back from Henry Fenton as well. Again, on the last lap, kissing the barrier out of the last turn. Jace Larson, well, he'll have to survive and cope with P5 for once. Not where he wanted to be, and that little kiss of the wall after the finish line sums up his whole race. Ken Clodin, though, he comes through for the win in GTD, looking after the tyres in the end. Matthews delighted with second. Padilla settling for third position on this occasion. What a shame for Powell, that spin on the opening lap from the pole. We could have seen a victory for the Corvette. It hasn't quite worked out his way. And Lambert will come through in front of Lanciers. Velasco's already crossed the line, as has Jim Drake. But what a way to end it, Rob. And finally, Dan Pino gets the race win he's deserved for quite some time.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what he's got to say in the interview room after that one. No doubt breathing a sigh of relief. But yeah, probably the heartfelt race goes to Donald Powell, put it on pole, had that incident in turn one. Wasn't able to quite recover like Henry Fenson did, but you know what, hats off to both those drivers for keeping their head down, pushing through. A lot of drivers would have just dropped out and called it quits early on there, Jake, but hats off to them. Seeing the checkered flag.
Well, what an exciting race that one was. We always knew that Watkins Glen was going to give us some drama. We weren't wrong, and certainly HPR GT World Challenge Season 9 has taken a very interesting twist. Here's the results in the GTD category. Dan Pino getting the victory at last. Ryan Anderson second in front of Lucia Tosi. Very strong race from all three. Henry Fenson, good recovery drive to come up with P4 ahead of Jace Larson. Velasco, a lap down in P6. Itamar LMA and Christian Ruiz failing to make the flag. And it was just as exciting in GTD, Rob.
Yeah, we saw Kenneth Cloden able to outlast Nicholas Matthews and Carlos Padilla, but Matthews and Padilla, a heck of a battle back after the race there for second and third place. Donald Powell, our pole sitter, going to come home in fourth. Rexy and Lambert going to round out the top five, with Lancier finishing up on the last car in GTD on the lead lap. Then Drake, Dittmer, Gomez, Cambrai, Lorano, Noman, Chandler all suffering early race incidents and going to fall a number of laps down here. They'll be looking to regroup next week here, Jake.
Yeah, fantastic race battle here at Watkins Glen. And of course, the championship battle will continue into next week. But for now, we get to bask in the glory of our victors. Let's bring in our race victor in the GTD Pro category as we go over the highlights of a crazy race. That opening lap for Powell, that spin, and that issue for Fenson, just the starter. But the man up front was never troubled. For once, Daniel Pino gets the race he deserves up front. Dan, first of all, a massive sigh of relief from you, I'm sure, when you came across the line. Finally, no issues with the internet, but what a brilliant drive. You must be so happy.
Yeah, it was a fun race.
So talk us through what it was like to get the rhythm in this car around this circuit. This is not an easy circuit to tame. You must have had a lot of enjoyment in the middle of the battle.
Yeah, track was 43 degrees, super hot. This car was losing the rear in every corner. Like there's some time that I have to manage the tire. I was playing with the gap. I let Ryan come, and when he comes, I start pushing. And then start giving a rest to the tires. He comes, and then start pushing again. Just a play.
After the pit stop, Anderson managed to close in quite a few seconds. Was there ever a little bit of an issue with getting the tires back up to temperature, or did you expect that there would be a little bit of drop-off after the pit stop?
Well, I don't know if he take tires or not, but yeah, I think he caught me because well, he do one more lap. Would you think the out lap is like 1 minute, no, probably 2 minutes, 1 minute 50, and he got me, he do 1:43, 44, 45. So that probably will be the gap, but I escape when I warm my tires, and he's just exiting the pits.
And we saw your spectacular celebration across the line. Not many people who get to enjoy a lead big enough to pirouette across the line, but I guess that must be just so much relief on your side. So many points have been taken away from you in Season 9 through to these problems. It must just be such a relief to get a result in the bag.
Yeah, I feel happy. Well, we practice with HPR Watkins because we have Mexico League next weekend. So Watkins a good track for me. So, yep, chicken dinner.
Winner, chicken dinner. Great job. Daniel Pino, congratulations. Fantastic win.
Yeah, man, thanks.
A stunning performance then in GTD Pro from Daniel Pino. Now, Rob, let's have a chat with Ken Clonin.
Hello.
Welcome in, Ken. Heck of a result there for you at the end. You're able to take the top spot in GTD, but we saw just before the pit cycle, Matthews and Padilla were able to close up on you, and then again, just before the end of the race, were you conserving a little bit that allowed them to close in, or was it just the McLaren kind of fell off a little bit as the race went on?
Actually, a little bit of both. Like I felt their cars got a little bit stronger towards the end of the run. Mine started getting real pushy, and then just that watching the Delta behind me, and you tighten up a little bit. So just trying to be extra careful.
Well, it worked to your favor.
I had the one in Long Beach that got away with me.
Yeah, so I was going to say, Long Beach didn't quite go that way. Able to capitalize here at Watkins. The Cloden 01, Ecto 01 that Alex Goldschmidt and Jake Sanson have kind of nicknamed your car. One of the fan favorite paint jobs here worked well for you. But how are you feeling heading into the final couple weeks here of the season in the GT World Challenge side of things? Think you got a chance to claw back some points here and make a run for the championship?
Yeah, I think a little bit towards that. I don't know if I can get the championship. I may miss a race or two due to travel. I'm actually, July 4th weekend, I'll be driving on Watkins Glen in real life in a Z06 Corvette. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm getting some good practice in. And then, we're all pretty, matched, like depending on tracks. We all run about the same. So it's tough. You got to count on somebody to maybe have a little misfortune or... because, they're tough up here.
Yeah, it seems to be
Carlos
well
and the
balanced.
guys, they're tough.
It seems to be well balanced across both the classes as far as how they've distributed the drivers into the Pro and the GTD class. And I got to admit, I'm a little bit jealous of you getting to drive a Corvette around Watkins Glen. I'm only about 3 hours north of the track myself. Yeah, absolutely, Jake. But before we let you go here, Kenneth, anybody you want to give a shout out to at home cheering you on?
Definitely. I want to give a shout out to my grandchildren, Dimitro, and a new one we have. It's about 3 months old. His name's Rylan. So definitely those guys, they're going to be really big into racing. If anybody in New Jersey needs teeth done, go to Smile Theory in Manalapan, New Jersey. And that's part of the reason I'm getting to drive a Corvette coming up in a few weeks. So Smile Theory, Manalapan, New Jersey.
So we
Dr.
can say
Z.
that the dentist will be on the car on the track. You should be driving one of the prototypes though, if you really want to fit the bill as the dentist car. But congrats again, Kenneth. Best of luck for the rest of the season. We hope to see you at the Sharp.
I appreciate it. And also, I want to give a shout out to you guys. The broadcast has been awesome. It's the first thing as soon as I'm done with the race. I can't wait to go watch. And to Carlos and all the guys that work hard at High Point, giving us a great opportunity and a great spot to race. It's always fun each week. So thank you guys.
We appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Have a great night, guys. Thank you.
Well, what a fantastic day at the races Watkins Glen International has provided us here in Season 9 of the HPR GT World Challenge. It's going to be an interesting one next week, Rob. Very different race circuit altogether, and certainly another twist and turn in the title battle, likely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which drivers find their way at the sharp end of the field here next week, Jake. The nice thing has been we've seen different drivers kind of really prevail each week, some of them due to technical issues, but you know what, we've had a number of different winners. It's nice to see a lot of parity throughout the field.
So obviously now we've got the focus next week at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. It'll be a tricky one as we've got 2 races left. After then, of course, it'll be Road Atlanta as we finish the season off in strong style. But we've definitely got some exciting battles ahead of us. It'll be a tricky one, and obviously everyone knows exactly how tight it's going to be. Alex Goldschmidt will be back in the booth next week, along with your rest of the regular broadcast team. But from myself, Jake Sanson, my producer and co-commentator Rob Campbell, and everybody here at Racer Nexus, we hope you've enjoyed the battle in week 6 of season 9 of High Point Racing's GT World Challenge. There's plenty more where that came from, and we'll be back in the booth next week when Spa-Francorchamps gives these drivers a very tough race to handle. Bye for now.